We're back in my lovely reading chair for the last of this 1960s series, and I think this has to be one of my favorite concepts of what we're doing here because this is going to be one entry in the traveling pattern. If you haven't seen Annabelle's video, Seamstress, Claude's, and hopefully soon we'll see Gwen's, then you'll know that we've been sending around a 1960s dress pattern and each sewing a particular view of it, packaging that up and sending it on to the next person. So I received dress pattern that we're going to make from Gwen. This is the dress pattern. There's a few views to choose from. I love that on one of the views, the fabric that they show has like pumpkins on it. I would like to go and unpack my package from Gwen because it looks like it's probably more than just the pattern. So let's go do that now. The pattern, so cute. So many different views. And then we have, oh, a card from Gwen. Oh my gosh, and I think she used a calligraphy pen. Gwen's apologizing for taking so long to get it to me, but honestly, I think I have to send the same apology on to the recipient of this from me because I have also taken so long. So no worries, Gwen, and I'm sorry. It just, sometimes life happens and it takes so long. She made this bracelet for me, isn't it beautiful? And she thought of the sweaters that I made. And I think that this is gonna go wonderfully with that. This is absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much. Oh, and then, of course, my favorite, always, some beautiful orange buttons. I'm so excited. These are definitely going to be used. Maybe not on this project because I have a certain color in mind for the fabric, but that I love them. Thank you so much. Okay, now let's get right to sewing up this dress so I can send it off to the next recipient.
I've taken a look at the pattern and I've decided I'm going to do view A because I want to wear it with the 60s sweater that I knit last time. So I want to make it where you have the short sleeves, but I'm not going to make the jacket together with it. I traced all of the original pattern pieces over to wrapping paper so that I can modify those pieces, not the originals, but the traced one. I'm definitely going to have to modify it. This is a 34-inch bust pattern and I'm at least 36-inch bust. My bust is like 36 inches, but then my waist and hips, I usually have to go with like a 38-inch bust size in order to fit that. But one thing I realized is it's been a while now since I've watched the videos of others making this exact same pattern and they likely had to modify this size as well. So I'm gonna go re-watch those so I can refresh myself. Let me go watch those for any hints at all on how to modify this pattern for myself.
After watching the videos of everyone else working with this pattern, I decided to re-measure myself. I haven't taken my measurements in a while, so I thought it would be nice for me to measure it, and I did measure it over my clothes because I wanted this to be kind of a relaxed fit dress. I then measured all the different pattern pieces and the points where they connect, keeping the seam allowance in line to see where I might need to add or subtract some room or some bits of the pattern pieces to fit me in the measurements that I took. One other thing you might notice is that I am not working with the original pattern pieces. I traced all of those onto my wrapping paper that I use for tracing off patterns because these pattern pieces are so delicate and I wanted them to last well until they went to their final destination.
Well, I have just finished checking all of my pattern pieces, except for the skirt. This is really only for the bodice. And I have to say, I'm pretty happy with my choice of what I'm doing because there's literally just 3 pattern pieces: the bodice front, the bodice back, and the skirt. And that's it. That's all I gotta do. It feels so much more achievable when I think of it in those terms. So biggest things I had to alter, and in case I haven't mentioned this yet, big shout out to Claude for her Claudemas series this year because she talked us through like very detailed instructions on how to modify and tailor like her whole sewing process as someone who is professionally trained. And I used so many of those little techniques and ideas and hints that we saw throughout the whole series, and I feel so much better prepared, and I haven't even really started, my needle to my fabric yet. Biggest things that I changed on this pattern is the neckline. I did an approximation. I took 2 inches out. I added an inch in length to the bodice front and back. I have a long torso. I typically, to pattern pieces, have to add between 1 and 2 inches, depending. The waist, I was considering potentially adding a little bit more room,
but I thought that I wouldn't just because we have 1 inch seam allowance in the sides. So if I need to let out the waist a little bit, I can. This has, like if you take out the darts, it has a 30-inch waist all the way around. So that fits me really nicely. Now that I'm talking, I actually didn't measure the bust. Let me measure the bust real quick and make sure that the bust will fit. I was literally just using my measuring tape and it's gone again. I didn't even get up from the table. What? This is kind of like, you know, the socks that keep on disappearing in the dryer? Okay, I found it. All right. Okay, bust point. 10.5 on the front, which doubled. So I'm including this, not including the seam allowances. So 10.5 doubled. And doubling 9.5, double 10, that's 20 minus 1, 19, 30, not 30. What did I say? Which doubled is 21. So 21 plus 19. 40-inch bust? Is that right? I feel like I'm doing the math wrong there somehow. Claude or Annabelle altered the bust and it fit them, and I think we're close to similar sizes, so I'm not going to do anything. So that was the other thing, is it seems like the arm size is going to be pretty tight for me. Okay, so I guess the next step is cutting out my fabric. I have pinned all of the darts in place on my front and back bodice. I did realize that I cut out the back bodice incorrectly. You were supposed to cut it out in 2 separate pieces, which is why it was so extra long on the back. So in reality, there would be a 1/2 inch seam up the back here. I am not going to make that just yet to give me a little bit of extra playroom to make any alterations. Let's take this over to my sewing machine and sew the bodice, starting with the darts. If you haven't seen my sewing machine before, why don't we go take a tour of one of my most prized antiques that I use all the time for all of my sewing.
This antique is my Wilcox & Gibbs chain stitch sewing machine. I use it for all of my sewing except when I need to do a buttonhole stitch or anything zigzag stitch, because unfortunately this antique can't do that, but it is so heavy duty and it works so well. The faceplate and rest of the sewing machine is likely from 1895, but all the parts that I had to put together to make this a treadle sewing machine came from many, many, many different places. It took me a long time to find all the bits and pieces and then assemble it into a fully working machine. I love this machine so much, and I hope that you kind of enjoy watching me use it over the next few videos. I did my first fitting after I sewed some of the seams on, and you can see here that I'm really having to grab some extra room out of the side seam. I marked where I need to sew in order for that to fit me well. One of the things looking back is that I wish I would have taken potentially just a little bit more length out of the torso. It looks fine here, but for whatever reason, when I sewed on the skirt, it does feel like it hangs a little bit low. The arm side is much more comfortable, and I know I'll be taking out a little bit of seam when I sew in the sleeves, or at least I don't have any sleeves on this, but the bias binding trim on that. So I worked on the bias binding next, which I did a lot of by hand because it was pretty finicky and fiddly work.
I have been working on this dress slowly, mainly on the skirt portion, a little bit on the piping, and I was super proud because gatherings, I don't know why, but gathers tend to give me a lot of problems. But I felt like I had, ouch, oh, it's still all pinned together, just scratched myself. Spots didn't really line up. Claude mentioned this in her video too, so I kind of created these like tuck darts with the extra fabric because that was recommended for one of the other views and I think it looks really cute. I thought the gathers were really nice and even. I tried it on. The dress I think fits me quite well. And then I noticed, did you notice it? Hold on, let me show you. I thought I was being so careful, but yeah, this is the wrong side of the skirt. So I'm gonna have to unpin everything. Oh. I think pinning is my least favorite part of sewing. Sewing is so satisfying. Like for me, the end process of sewing, super satisfying. The process of sewing, less satisfying. Knitting, I like both the process of knitting and the end product. Sewing, I'm much more of a product sewer than a process sewer, that's for sure. All right, let me go fix this. I honestly forgot where we last left off with this dress. I haven't worked on it for a little while, but the main structure of everything is done. So all that's needed are the finishing touches. So I need to sew down this piping. I have to remove these gathering stitches because they stand out quite a bit, and I have to hem the dress. So let's get to the finishing steps so that we can finally wear this piece. Okay, I have to hop back in here really quickly. I know that all I said that needed to be done in the dress was to do all the hemming and like sewing down of the piping and everything like that. And that's all done. But for whatever reason, my eyes caught this pattern for this brushed wool hat. And I do have leftover yarn from my skirt and sweaters kit from last time, and I just thought that it would make the perfect accessory. Like, think of the capsule wardrobe. I have my 1960s coat, a sweater, a skirt, a dress, and a knit hat. So I don't know how well this is gonna go with brushing it, because you're supposed to take a teasel comb and tease out the fur, so it's like a brushed wool hat. Not the fur. It's supposed to kind of look like fur, but it's brushed wool. I have a dog comb that I can do to try to make it like that. So I am just going to take these little scraps. I have vintage number 6 needles like the pattern calls for. I think I'm going to hold it double. I think that's what I need to get my gauge. And I'm just going to try it out. It's knit in 2 pieces. One, the crown, and the other bit, the part that goes around the hat like this. So I'm just going to knit the crown bit because that's a smaller bit. I'm going to try to brush it and see if it works with this yarn. The crown of the hat is done. And I think it's exactly the right size. I'm surprised at how well I hit gauge. I really didn't use that much yarn either. I still have this much left of the yarn that I was working from. I know that the pattern says to do the brushing and teasing of this to make it like fuzzy after you assembled it. But before I use up more of this very precious yarn, I'm gonna brush this crown out first and just see if I can get that fuzzy effect. I was looking for Nutella's dog fur comb, and I realized that I got rid of the one that people sometimes use for carding wool. I think that one would have been perfect because Nutella really hated that one. We never used that one, so I think we gave that one away. So instead, I was thinking, I have this vintage hairbrush with like really stiff bristles that could work. This is Nutella's dog comb that we use now. That could also work. So I'm just gonna try it and see what happens. to work. I think I'm gonna brush it a little bit longer because from the pattern it looks like you really can't see the individual stitches anymore, but it's getting so soft and I think it's gonna be a really nice and warm hat, which I still need. I might brush it a little bit from the back as well to kind of fill in some of those spaces between the stitches, and it might also be nice to have it nice and fluffy behind my ears. So I'm gonna finish brushing this and then I will cast on for the portion that goes around the crown of this hat.
After sewing together all the pieces of my hat and brushing it out one final time to really get that fuzzy hat appearance that I wanted, the entire ensemble is done and I'm ready to reveal to you my finished 1960s dress and hat. I think this completes my 1960s little capsule wardrobe and I really love it so much. This dress and the cute little hat is something that I think that I will wear actually quite often, including the rest of my pieces. I feel like I can mix and match so many of these and I'm so happy with how they all turned out. This is really fun. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please feel free to like, and if you're interested in some more further back historical videos, in just a little bit we're going to be starting a new Victorian series, including Victorian knitting and other fiber crafts. So I will see you then. Bye!
Oh my gosh, it is howling. Oh, don't fall over, please. Okay, there's a storm moving in. I gotta go.